Hello, Patriots, and welcome to the channel once again. This week, we're going to be asking the big question is, should Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear be impeached and removed from office or not? I'd advertised this topic last week, and I was going to use my traditional humor that I like to use, but as I was examining this, I've decided this is far too serious of a topic to be handled in a lighthearted way. And some people want to just discount anybody who wants to even think about impeachment as just a nut job, and that should be discounted. That is incorrect. This is a legitimate question that we will examine today in all seriousness. And we're going to examine this not judging Andy Beshear on his political affiliation, but we will judge him on the content of his actions. We're going to look at this topic today in three different ways. First of all, can he be impeached and removed from office? Second, we'll ask the question, should he be impeached and removed from office? And third and finally, is this really going to happen? Will it happen? Well, first, let's examine that first part. Can he actually be impeached and removed from office? Notice what the Kentucky Constitution says. In section number 68, it addresses the idea of impeachment and removal from office. It says, the governor and all civil officers shall be liable to impeachment for any misdemeanors in office, but judgment in such cases shall not extend further than removal from office and disqualification to hold any office of honor, trust, or profit under this Commonwealth. But the party convicted shall, nevertheless, be subject and liable to indictment, trial, and punishment by law. Now notice a few things right here. First of all, impeachment can be for any misdemeanors. So if there are any misdemeanors that Governor Beshear has committed, then according to the articles of impeachment, he may be impeached. Now, let's talk about what a misdemeanor is. If you look it up in the Webster's Dictionary, a misdemeanor is a crime less than a felony. It goes on to describe that as, therefore, a misdemeanor literally means bad behavior toward others. So is what the governor is doing, if it is less than a felony, and if it's been bad toward others, that fits the qualification of a misdemeanor. And it's less than a felony. Keep that in mind. If he's actually committed crimes, impeachment doesn't deal with that. That is for the courts. Notice what it says in section 68. It says, judgment in such cases shall not extend further than removal from office. They're like, listen, these misdemeanors are something you can remove somebody from office for. But if they've actually committed crime, that the Senate doesn't have any ability to punish somebody for committing a crime. They can just do it for these misdemeanors. Crimes, it says, the party convicted shall nonetheless be subject and liable to indictment and trial and punishment by law. They have to go to the courts to actually, if they've actually committed any crimes or felonies. Impeachment specifically deals with these misdemeanors and offenses against the Kentucky law. So impeachment in section 68 for any misdemeanors, not only crimes, because crimes are dealt with in the courts. So we have the questions, can, should, or will he be impeached? As far as can, the Constitution is very specific on this. That's the reason the whole section 68 is in there. Yes, a governor can be removed from office, not for crimes, but for also misdemeanors. So now let's go to that question of, should he then be impeached or not? For this, we're going to keep a little tally mark of impeachable offenses. Let's look at the first section of the Kentucky Constitution, which says, all men are, by nature, free and equal, and have certain inherent and inalienable rights, among which may be reckoned. And then they start listing the ones that can be reckoned. Now, I want you to notice, first of all, that word inalienable. Again, using the Webster Dictionary, inalienable means incapable of being alienated, surrendered, or transferred. You cannot take certain rights away. You can't transfer them. You can't separate the people from these. These are inalienable rights. And then it lists what some of these inalienable rights are. Notice the first one. It says, first, the right of enjoying and defending their lives and liberties. Well, as far as your liberties, have you been able, as Kentucky citizens, under the mandates of Governor Beshear, have you been enjoying the liberty to go to church, to go to work, to go to school, to travel, to do any of these things? Some people think, well, this is just maybe a throwaway sentence about the joy of liberty. I do not take liberty as something that is very flippant or light. Liberty is incredibly important, and it was listed as the very first priority. People should be able to enjoy their liberties of such the liberty to go to school, the liberty to go to work, the liberty to worship, the liberty to travel, the liberty to conduct your business, being able to enjoy these has been taken away by Governor Beshear. That is our first of the impeachable offenses. Let's look at what it says second. Second, the right of worshiping Almighty God according to the dictates of their consciences. Well, notice it says you can worship God according to the dictates of their conscience, the people's conscience, not what the governor has decided is his conscience. And do you remember on Easter Sunday that the governor directed that anybody who goes to church, he had the state police put notices on their cars saying you now may face up to 1 year in jail for defying the governor's orders and a $500 fine. That is specifically what it says on the notice that he had the state police put on worshipers' cars on Easter Sunday morning. Is very interesting to note that a 1 year in jail and $500 fine is a misdemeanor. And he is accusing the people of conducting a misdemeanor when in fact he is the one who did that, because the federal courts have ruled that he broke the law when he did this. This is not a question for debate. This has already been through the courts, and a final ruling has been given. He did break the law by doing this, and therefore that is an impeachable offense. Notice what it says third, the right of seeking and pursuing their safety and happiness. And you'll notice the people get to pursue their own safety. It is not the responsibility or the role of the governor to ensure the health of the people. It is the individual's responsibility to look for their health. And if he wants to try to argue otherwise, then he's going to have a big problem with smoking in Kentucky. Kentucky is the second highest smoking state in America. And we know that 8,900 plus Kentuckians die every year from smoking. If the governor's job was to protect your health, why hasn't he done anything about that? Why didn't he issue a mandate saying, don't smoke, because we know it kills almost 9,000 Kentuckians in a year, which is far more than COVID has. We know that more than 1,000 Kentuckians die every year from secondhand smoke. These are people who didn't make the decision themselves. Other people did it. And we yet have 1,000 Kentuckians dying every single year because of that. Has he issued any mandates whatsoever to protect the health of these Kentuckians that wasn't choosing to smoke? No, he hasn't done that at all. So if he wants to say, well, I'm doing this for your safety, no, he's not doing that for health or safety, because he's just singled out one little thing for this and is ignoring all other topics considering that. Let's look at what it says in section 1/4. It says the right of freely communicating their thoughts and opinions. Well, the federal judge ruled against Governor Beshear's orders, saying that he said, I forbid any protest being at the Capitol building. Well, he violated your constitutional rights, both the U.S. Constitution and the Kentucky Constitution, by issuing that order. You'll notice that it says right there that not only did he break the law doing this, but despite the order, which is despite his own order, several large gatherings have been held outside the Capitol in recent months, at least one of which Beshear attended himself. So he's saying, you can't meet anywhere, but I'm going to meet with large groups. Maybe you remember this meeting. Here's a picture from it. and you'll see that Governor Beshear doesn't have his mask on. He's not social distancing. He's meeting with large groups, all of which he commanded that nobody else is allowed to do, and yet he will say that he and his group is allowed to do it. We are now up to 4 impeachable offenses and violations of the Kentucky Constitution, which is the highest law in the state, and or the U.S. Constitution, the highest law in all of the country. Notice what it says in Section 1. It annotates the 6th right. It says the right of assembling together in a peaceable manner for their common good, and of applying to those invested with the power of government for redress of grievances or other proper purposes by petition, address, or remonstrance. So we see here, hey, I'm allowed to assemble together. And yet, Kentucky Governor Beshear deployed the state police to people who were assembling together in church peaceably. And he says, hey, no, I'm going to maybe lock you up for a year for that. It's ironic that these people could have all gone to Walmart or Kroger or any other store that was open that day. And by the way, Kroger's and Walmart's and Lowe's and Home Depot and many others were open that day. And all of the people at that church could go to the same store at the same time, and that would have been okay. But going to church is not. He has violated the right of assembly, and that's an impeachable offense. He's also violated the right of assembly through his more recent orders, where he issued a command that you cannot have more than 8 people in your own home. As I am recording this, there is a case before the United States Supreme Court saying that this is illegal. It violates the U.S. freedom of assembly in our Constitution, and it also violates the Kentucky Constitution's the right of assembly, and the audacity to even say you can't have 9 people in your own home. Now that brings us up to 5 impeachable offenses for specific violations of the highest law in the land. Let's look at Section 5 of the Kentucky Constitution. It says, the civil rights, privileges, or capacities of no person shall be taken away or in any wise diminished or enlarged on account of his belief or disbelief in any religious tenet, dogma, or teaching. No human authority shall in any case whatever control or interfere with the rights of conscience. Well, notice what we have right here. It says that concerning your religious liberty, it cannot even be diminished. In the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 25, it says, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together. So his one action forbidding church gatherings is also a violation of Section 5 of the Kentucky Constitution. It says that no human authority, you can't interfere with this right at all. And if it's my conscience says I'm supposed to gather together at church, he has no authority to do this, making it an impeachable offense. There is also a case before the United States Supreme Court right now. We expect a ruling on this the day after I'm posting this on Saturday. We expect a ruling to come out about how he's forbidden Christian schools and church schools from meeting, even though these schools take nothing from the government. No money, no support, no resources, nothing. And that is interfering with the rights of conscience on how these people believe they have the right for religious education, another impeachable offense and specific violation of the law. Let's go to Section 2 of the Kentucky Constitution. It says, absolute and arbitrary power over the lives, liberty, and property of free men exists nowhere in a republic, not even in the largest majority. Now let's think about that word arbitrary, where it's like, well, it doesn't apply for everybody, it's just some and not the others. He has said, hey, I'm going to say all the abortion clinics in the state, they can stay open. At the same time, he commanded all the churches to close. That is very arbitrary. He has said, listen, the big corporate stores like Walmart and Kroger and others, they can stay open. But the small businesses, the mom and pop shops who would sell the same products, they have to close. that is arbitrary. He has said, listen, for social distancing, you have to social distance and you have to wear a mask, but I don't have to wear a mask. I'll pull it down when I want. I'll not social distance if I don't choose to. He says, listen, riots, people are allowed to go to riots. That's perfectly fine. But the protests against him, he says, you're not allowed to go to those. That is arbitrary. He's kept, you know what, you can go to a strip club right now and you can get a drink and order a drink there, but you can't go to a restaurant or a bar and get a drink because he says those have to close. That is arbitrary over the lives, liberty, and property. This is what you're allowed to do with the property. If you're a business and you own your own property, he's saying, I'm going to control that in an arbitrary manner, and that, therefore, is a specific violation of the Kentucky Constitution and is an impeachable offense. Well, let's look at Section 15 of the Kentucky Constitution. It says, no power to suspend laws shall be exercised unless by the General Assembly or its authority. And as specific note, the General Assembly has been out of session and have not given him any authority to do any of the things he is doing. Notice it says, no power to suspend laws shall be exercised. However, Governor Beshear suspended Kentucky law KRS 117.227 when he says, listen, you don't have to have voter identification anymore. As you see here in the article from the Courier-Journal and another one from CNN, the Kentucky General Assembly this year passed a law saying, hey, you have to have photo ID to vote. And yet Governor Beshear on his own says, because of COVID, I'm suspending that law, and you don't have to have a photo ID. You can just do all this mail-in voting, a specific violation of Section 15 of the Constitution and Kentucky Revised Statute 117.227. That's really two violations, but to be nice, it is Christmas. We'll only count it as one. Let's look at Section 4 of the Kentucky Constitution. It says, immigration from the state shall not be prohibited. And yet, what did Governor Beshear decree? He says, hey, I'm not going to allow you to leave the state because I just decree it so. This was taken to court, and as you see here, the newspaper article, Kentucky's COVID-19 travel ban ruled unconstitutional. Now, whether this is a violation of the United States Constitution or also Section 24 of the state Constitution, it has been ruled that he did break the law and violated at least one of these constitutions, if not both. And this case has already been settled, and a final ruling has come out. He did indeed break the law. And that is a matter of record that is no longer up for debate. We're up to 10 violations already. Let's look at Section 26 of the Kentucky Constitution. It says, to guard against transgression of the high powers which we have delegated, we declare that everything in this Bill of Rights, and that's everything we've read up to this point, is accepted out of the general powers of government and shall forever remain inviolate, and all laws contrary thereto or contrary to this Constitution shall be void. The law the governor is using to make all of these decrees is Kentucky Revised Statute number 39A. And if you actually read that, it is in direct violation of what the Kentucky Constitution gives you the rights to do. 39A allows him to literally take your home, take every cent in your bank account, to take your car, to take your phone, to give these away to whoever he wants, to sell them, and he only has to give you 1 red cent. That's literally what the law says. If you would like to read this law word for word, just go to our channel, Patriot Point, and look under the video. You see there we have the thumbnail for it called Crazy Power, No Way, Yes Way, and we put up word for word this law that literally says all of these things. So the law he is using to issue all of these decrees is in and of itself void and illegal. But we won't even count that as a violation because he is using an illegal law. Let's look at something he is doing to break it. Section 49 of the Kentucky Constitution says, the General Assembly may contract debts to meet casual deficits or failures in the revenue, but such debts, direct or contingent, singly or in the aggregate, shall not at any time exceed $500,000. Well, notice what it says here. It says the General Assembly can contract debts. It does not say the executive branch, being the governor, may do this. And yet, Governor Beshear took out a loan for $865 million on his own. He did not get the General Assembly's permission to do this. He did not even request them to do this. He did not even inform them he was doing this. He took out an $865 million loan, incurring debt for the state, and he has zero legal authority to do that. This, if there was nothing else, alone is a major impeachable offense and a reason why he should be removed from office. But notice there's actually a second violation of Section 49. You'll notice in the headline there it says that he borrowed $865 million. Well, you know what? He's not allowed to borrow that much money at a time because the state is only allowed to borrow $500,000 at a time. And he super gigantically exceeded that amount, making it a second violation of Section 49, and we're now up to 12 impeachable offenses. But it continues. Let's go on. Section 145 of the Kentucky Constitution says, persons convicted in any court of competent jurisdiction of treason or felony, and then it gives some other reasons and ends with, shall operate as an exclusion from the right of suffrage. The right of suffrage, that is the right to vote. It says if you are a convicted felon, then you do not have the right to vote. But Governor Beshear says, I'm going to violate this. And you'll notice what it says right there in the newspaper article. It says Kentucky's new governor has restored voting rights to felons in the state in an executive order signed days after he took office, even though the Kentucky Constitution specifically says you cannot have the right to vote if you are a convicted felon. Now, if you go on and read the rest of Section 145, it does give the governor the right to pardon felons. However, that is for individuals, not in mass. And none of these people were given a pardon. They were just given the right to vote. These are two different things, and he is therefore in violation of Section 145 of the Kentucky Constitution. And also remember, by doing this, also violates Section 15, which we already read, saying he has no power to suspend any laws at all. So this brings us up to a total count of 14 specific violations of the Constitution. All of these misdemeanors, any one of which would be legal grounds for impeachment and removal from office. And by the way, this doesn't count Section 28 of the Kentucky Constitution, which says no person or collection of persons being in one of those departments, one of the three branches of government, shall exercise any power, properly belonging to either of the others. Yet he has been making up things and acting like they are laws. He has also allowed the health departments to say, listen, I'm going to issue citations and I'm going to put down how much you have to pay, and you have to pay us directly right now, which is saying, like the courts, the judicial branch, saying you're guilty and this is the fine. He has been taking the power of the legislative and the judicial. So he's also kind of violated Section 28 of the Kentucky Constitution. So really, instead of 14, we really ought to say 15. So, can he be removed from office? Yes. Should he be removed from office? We have now given you 15 plus reasons why he should be removed from office. So that leaves the last question, will he? Well, that is up to the Kentucky General Assembly. They alone have the authority to do this or not. There are some who think that they should just strip the governor of his powers that he's used to abuse the people and reprimand him from what he is doing and then let him go. Well, let's think about this. let's say that there was a thief who breaks into your home and takes what is rightfully yours. And they have to go before the judge, and the judge says, I am taking away your ability to rob these people the way that you robbed them before. You won't be able to do that again. And you never should have done this to begin with. With that said, you're free to go. If that were to happen, where would be the justice for that? The people have been robbed, and all that happened to the one who did the robbing is they were said, you shouldn't have robbed them, and I won't let you rob them the way that you did before. There would be no justice with this verbal slap on the wrist, would there? And we'll end with this one final illustration. I am a military veteran. I'm actually a combat veteran. I served right at the heart of the war during it, right there in Baghdad. And sometimes, actually quite often, our position would be attacked. And you know what we didn't do to defend our lives and to defend our position? We didn't go out to the terrorist that was attacking us and take away his weapon and say, hey, you never should have attacked us to begin with. Now that we have your weapon, you're free to go. Because if we would have done that, you know what would have happened? The terrorist would have went out, found another weapon, and would have just come the next day and attacked us from another angle. And if all the Kentucky General Assembly does is take away the weapon that Andy Beshear has used this time, you know what he's going to do? He's already demonstrated he has zero respect for legislative intent and zero respect for the General Assembly members. He will simply find a different type of weapon and attack from a different direction on another day. So what can you do to encourage the Kentucky General Assembly to remove him from office for all of these legal violations, for him restricting your rights of worship, your right to go to school, your right to travel, your right to run your business, your right to go anywhere, your right to have people in your own home? You can call them at 1-800-372-7181. That is the message center. It is open weekdays during normal business hours, and I hope you will let your voice be heard. So that is just a little glimpse. This is by no means an all-encompassing report of every single law that the governor has violated. We have looked on if he can be removed from office. The answer clearly is yes. We have looked at the question, should he be removed from office? We've given you a minimum of 15 plus reasons why. The last question is, will he? That is up to the Kentucky General Assembly. I want everyone to remember when you call, the General Assembly is not the one who has done this to us. All of the rights that have been taken away have been done by the governor alone. The General Assembly can be the voice of the people that can stand up and defend the Constitution. When I was in the military, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that is what I have tried to do with this video. Every single member of the General Assembly has taken a very similar oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. I hope they will do just that. Well, until next week, I'm Lee Watts for Patriot Point. Stand strong and breathe free.